In my first ever video about Genesis 1:1, I got criticized for saying that the word et has no function in Hebrew. Some viewers argued that this short word in fact has a very special spiritual significance, and a few even accused me of trying to push an agenda. So this video is going to look closer into this. I hope you'll stay with me. But first, may I introduce myself? I'm Ilan, a native Hebrew speaker with more than 20 years of experience working with languages as a professional translator. In Revelation, Jesus proclaims himself 4 times to be Alpha and Omega, which are the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. This is in all likelihood a metaphor signifying that Jesus is eternal and all-encompassing. The short word et is also composed of the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. It famously appears twice in the very first verse of the Bible, which talks about the beginning of the world. This led some Christians to see et as linked to the quote of Jesus in Revelation, hence having a special religious importance. So some viewers were offended by my conclusion that et provides no real purpose and can be dropped without changing the meaning. Well, first of all, I didn't have the slightest idea about this when making the video more than a year ago. It was obvious to me from the start that this topic, i.e. reading the Bible in Hebrew, can make some people angry despite me being extra cautious. But I never thought that my comment about this seemingly humble word, et, will be the trigger. Back to the present time. Armed with this knowledge and with all the respect I have to those viewers and to Christians in general, I don't change my conclusion even now. Please let me explain. You see, there is a difference between religious interpretation and what I'm trying to do here. In Judaism too, theologists use a whole range of analytical tools to get a deeper faith-based understanding of the text. In the case of Christianity, this includes finding a linkage between Alpha and Omega and Aleph and Tav, while this link is not explicitly mentioned in the biblical text. Also note that the New Testament was written in Greek, not Hebrew. Linking et and Alpha and Omega is of course a completely valid religious interpretation, and I'm not arguing with it one bit. What I'm trying to do here, though, has more to do with the most straightforward reading of the text. I'm not looking at this from a Jewish point of view, despite being Jewish myself, or a Christian point of view, despite most of my viewers appearing to be Christians. My mission is to be faith neutral, dealing with roots, nouns, adjectives, conjugations, and more. Essentially, it's grammar and basic reading comprehension, only in Hebrew. To conclude this important intro, let me stress that my mission here is not to affirm or shake your belief, but just give you access to the Hebrew in the Bible in the most unbiased way possible. Therefore, in this video, we will look at some of the around 6,000 times et appears in the Hebrew Bible, by far the most frequent word in the Tanakh or the Old Testament, and see what we can learn from doing that. So without further ado, let's look closer at et. Basically, et is a utility word, but of the kind that does not add any extra meaning to the text, unlike the accusative case in some languages, as several viewers suggested. From a grammar point of view, et mostly appears before a direct object that has a definitive article. As it is virtually always used in the same role and remains unchanged, et does not give us any new information beyond what is already in the sentence without it. My best analogy would be the indefinite article in English. In the sentence, "This is a rare coin," we can drop the article a, which will make the sentence sound slightly off, but completely comprehensible. And indeed, Hebrew, as well as Arabic and many other languages, do not have this concept of an indefinite article, and all those non-English speakers are doing just fine. The same applies to et, and this might be the reason it has no equivalent in any other language. Omitting it makes sentences sound funny, but not more than that. The Tanakh, or the Old Testament, sometimes uses it multiple times in a single verse, in what seems like a kind of a very wordy stylistic choice. Look at this example. Et appears here 42 times in 9 consecutive verses, attached to direct objects that are linked back to a single verb. Technically, it would have been grammatically acceptable to use far fewer ets, or even just one. On the other hand, there are places in the Bible that omit et even when it is expected. For example, in the story of the Tower of Babylon. Dropping et often makes a sentence sound a bit more high register, and indeed, this word is much less frequent in the poetic parts of the Hebrew Bible, like Psalms, which use an elevated kind of Hebrew. For a more complete picture, et is also used as with in a handful of cases, like in Psalms 12:2. And that's not all. Et was conjugated to form the Hebrew equivalent of object pronouns in English. So, for example, he loves her is translated with et, hu ohev ota. This is et, and the other two letters are part of the conjugation. And speaking of love, this same word was used in Judges 14:2, where Samson, or Shimshon in Hebrew, wanted to marry his unnamed Philistine wife. You are invited to watch my episode about Genesis 1:4, where I bring more examples of biblical Hebrew words with the same spelling, i.e. the first and last letters of the alphabet, like the pronoun for the singular female in the third person. And one last thing. Just so that you have a more complete picture, note that there is a lot of overlap between the Hebrew and Greek alphabets. That shouldn't be surprising, since the whole concept of an alphabet was introduced to Hellenic people by the Phoenicians, a seafaring nation that inhabited the coastline of modern-day Lebanon, and shared the same script as the ancient Israelites. But what we can see is that at one point, the Hebrew letters run out, while there are 4 additional letters in Greek. One of them is omega, which has no equivalent in either Phoenician or Hebrew. The same happens when looking at the Latin alphabet, which was developed from Greek. The last Hebrew letter is Tav, or T in English. Most of the remaining letters are not found in Hebrew. So, from a purely technical point of view, since omega is not found in Hebrew, there might not be any match in the language for the pair alpha and omega when comparing the two alphabets. But again, I'm here just to give you the facts, not the interpretation. You can consult your faith-based sources or your spiritual guides for more religious insights about the significance of et. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.